Welcome back. The latest study by the Progress on International Reading Literacy study shows that 81% of grade 4 pupils cannot read for meaning in any language. In fact, in 2011, that figure stood at 78%. Time to Read founder Marit Paul says there are solutions to this crisis. In fact, she joins me now to unpack them. When we look at that number since 2011, Marit, and where we are now in 2023, it would seem, instead of an improvement, things have worsened somewhat.
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
Why is that?
I think it's basically because of the way we teach reading. So I'm a speech therapist, and I started my teaching career at a remedial school where I taught grade 1 for 12 years. And then I went into mainstream teaching, and I saw that the same percentage of children from remedial to mainstream weren't reading either. And when I asked the question of why is this happening, because I know I'm trying my best, teachers would tell me that just happens. We have these children every year. So I wanted to see if there are answers to this, and I went and I started doing my master's degree. And what I saw is the method of instruction is the problem. What we are doing is we are letting children memorize words as if they are pictures. What we don't teach from the beginning, we don't teach children what each symbol in a word means. And I think so that has the thinking behind it, that actually written words don't require any skills to read, and there's no understanding of symbols required. So what we've done at Time to Read, we've gone back and we're thinking of how were written words invented. And basically when children come into grade 1, what they can do is they have a fair amount of vocabulary that they have. Then we go and say, right, they might enter a classroom being able to say a word like bird. So how did bird get into writing? The first step was sounding it out. And that is something I do completely using my ears only. There's no letters. Only once I can hear the sounds do I translate them into letters. And the last step is actually decoding those letters again. However, when we make children memorize words, we actually start the wrong way around. We're starting with decoding. So that is where, in our opinion, the problem is the method of teaching that needs to be addressed. And once we address that, we have really such exciting statistics that actually showcase how well at risk children are doing when they understand what words are made up of. And the beauty of it is, like in South Africa, where we have a rainbow nation, we can teach it to every child, because any child, whether they are English speaking, isiZulu, Setswana, they can learn to hear sounds in words, and they can learn the symbols as well. So that is the beauty behind it.
And I can completely relate, and I understand completely what you are saying, Marit, because I've got a 4-year-old daughter. She's already started, and she's far away from grade 1 as you and I speak, obviously. But she recognizes the letters that spell her name, which is Tejo, right? When she sees a T, she'll recognize it. And I imagine this would be an exercise undertaken by us as parents, but it's a huge task for government and the education department, as it were.
Well, actually, it is. I do agree it is a huge task, but at Time to Read, we've really done it. So what we've done is we've systematically looked at what symbol learning is necessary, say, to master the language of English. So what we've done is we've put these into a 4-year program, starting with grade R1, 2, 3, and 4, where we systematically start first with the skills needed for reading and spelling, which are blending and segmenting, both completely auditory skills that we can do eyes closed. Once children can do that, like your little one, then they are empowered to work with symbols. So then we systematically introduce these symbols, and beginner readers only read text containing the symbols they know. So they never get something unknown. And what the magic of this is that anxiety goes down because children are in control of their learning. One of my biggest joys was when a granny at a farm school called me in to help them understand how to teach reading. And when I said to her, listen, how did you even hear about me? It was in Polokwane, in a trust, where there was no electricity, not because of load shedding, there just simply isn't electricity. And when I asked her, how did you hear of me? She said, well, my child goes to a school in Pretoria where they do time to read. And there, her little grandson visiting her in the holiday said to her, Granny, can I teach you how to read? Let's think of the word dog. Granny, can you hear the sounds? De og. Let me write them down for you. This is what de looks like. That's what o looks like. That's what g looks like. And then he said to Granny, now read those sounds. And she said de og. And he said, see, Granny, that's how easy it is. Now you can read. So this can really be done across. It doesn't matter whether it's a home language child. I strongly believe if we change our methods of instruction, we can teach every child, even the at-risk child, to read.
And just as we close our conversation this afternoon, Marit, I mean, the earlier we start, the better. How should we start? And this is a tip for parents who are watching.
So I was thinking of you immediately talking about your little daughter. And so it's so important to compare apples with apples.
Right.
Just by what you're saying, I'm picking up your little daughter is the blessed one. We call her the top 40% according to research. So what I would recommend for because we never know at age 4 or 5, where does my child fall? So what I would recommend is put a pause on the visual, on the letters. Develop the skills to work with letters. So when you're in the car, think of these very short words like cap and man and sun and, these very short words, and ask your child, what sounds can you hear in that word? Man, n. Or reverse it and say, if I say man, if I say n, what word can you hear? This is what we find if I see senior primary, high school children coming into my practice, that if I go back and look deeply into where their problem lies, it comes back to the auditory. So it all starts with the auditory. And because our writing system that we use in South Africa for all 11 national languages is based on sound. And that's why our at-risk children need that sound part so important. So yeah, importantly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marit, for those tips, and we are absolutely going to use them. Time to Read founder Marit Paul live to us this afternoon.